Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode, and I'm absolutely thrilled today to have with me Sean Douglas. I should have said you're in for a treat today because I'm in for a treat today because Sean is incredibly dynamic. We met a couple of weeks ago at Podfest Expo. I asked him if he'd come on the pod, and he graciously agreed to do so. Sean, with that incredibly long-winded introduction, first of all, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us today.
I'm really excited to be on the show. It's great to meet you. We've kind of talked online a little bit, but it's always great to meet fellow podcasters in person.
So you have a really interesting background. So I was wondering if you might tell us a little bit about your professional background, Sean.
Yeah, I spent 20 years in the Air Force and retired after that, 20 years and 4 days, and lived and worked all over the world and became a John Maxwell certified speaker, Myers-Briggs certified, disc profile certified, 4 lenses certified, and was a drill instructor for 4 years. So I think that's where the speaking and podcasting come from a little bit.
Sean, a large portion of this audience are corporate compliance officers and other corporate executives. And one of the reasons I was so thrilled to have you come on is I try to bring people from outside that direct profession, or as I say, have your people talk to my people to really give us some ideas. But some of the things you write and talk about are directly in the compliance wheelhouse: resiliency, leadership, business positioning. And in the corporate world, I tell a compliance function who your customers are. They're your co-employees. So
Yeah.
how are you going to position your business within your organization? Let's start maybe with you introducing your podcast and your book.
Yeah, thank you. It is From No Worth to Self-Worth. That's one of the books. And the other book is Decisions, the Power to Overcome Self-Defeating Behaviors. I wrote that one in 2016. It kind of goes through the self-defeating behaviors that a human displays, let's put it that way, with all the life stuff and everything, which led to speaking and creating podcasts. So that book, From No Worth to Self-Worth, was turned into a podcast, which we're trying to turn it into a TV show. So we're working on that. And then my other podcast is called Create, Launch, Monetize Podcast, which I'm actually rebranding that into the Booked and Paid Speaker Blueprint to teach people how to not only create, launch, and monetize their business, but specifically in the communication and speaking industry.
I'd like to go to your military service and start by asking, what are one, two, or three top things you learned in the military?
Number one, bad leadership. I learned bad leadership. So anybody who's ever served in the military, it just seems that you have a really solid leadership base. And then at some point, don't know how or where, those people who are not so good leaders get promoted to higher ranks. And then you have an organization that spirals out of control because they're just not good leaders. So I learned what bad leadership looks like. And then secondly, I learned discipline. And that's what it takes, is discipline. It takes discipline to be a podcaster, a speaker, a CEO, an employee. Like, you have to show up to work on time. You have to complete your tasks. You have to complete your job. And we're trained in the military that it takes discipline to take that hill. You could run away. You could say no, but the consequences of that are not great. And so it takes discipline to serve outside of your own self. And that's the third thing I learned, was service and what actual service looks like.
You also mentioned you were a basic training drill instructor.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn as a drill instructor?
Oh, man. What did I learn as a drill instructor? I would say patience, number one. Patience, because let's just say that I knew everything about the military because I was serving in the military for a decade, right? So I pretty much have got the military figured out. And then you become a drill instructor and you're like, why don't you know this? Well, because they're not in the military. Like, you're trying to teach them the military lifestyle and you want them to get it. And you only have about 8 weeks for them to figure it out and for them to get it. And some don't. And you're like, what is happening? And so patience, number one, patience. It's like raising kids.
And anything beyond patience.
Yeah, we have to teach classes, and it's not just all yelling and throwing things like in a Full Metal Jacket. That's a part of it, yes. You say funny things and you come up with funny one-liners, but as a drill instructor, your job is to build up leaders. And so you have to find many different ways to say the same thing because they don't get it the first time or second time or fifth time. You've got to come up with creative ways for them to understand and comprehend what you're saying. And so being a drill instructor made me a very good communicator because what I thought was clear was unclear, and you have to give them orders. And what I found out was that when you say things and you give orders and they're like, "What are you doing? Sir, this is what you told us to do." I'm like, that's not even remotely close. And then they repeat back to what your order was. You're like, crap. That actually you're actually being very literal right now, and you're literally following exactly what crap. Yeah. So what I taught them was to ask better questions. They're like, we can't question orders. I'm like, no, clarifying questions. Sir, just to repeat that you want us to do. And if it comes back to me, that's very unclear. I could be like, let me be more specific. So I actually had to learn how to be a better communicator because what I thought in my head sounded very clear was not very clear at all.
I was going to ask you next, how did this experience shape your approach to leadership and team building? But actually, I think you just answered it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Ask better questions, you get better answers.
I wrote an article on asking questions, and that's a big part of the corporate compliance world as well. Tell me about the three businesses you started while serving in the Air Force and balancing that.
Oh my gosh. Talk about balancing. The first business I created was an events company or an entertainment company, as we called it. And that was a high six-figure company. We could have probably reached $1 million if I wouldn't have ruined it. What I learned in that was corporate business, corporate space, budgeting, definitely budgeting. So what we did was we were the AV guys in the back of the room. We would produce the event for the company or for whoever wanted to put the event on, awards dinners. And we were the planners. We were setting the agendas and budgets and like all the things. And between the five of us, we were crushing it, well over 650K, just killing it. I started using it as my own personal bank account, and they pretty much voted me off the island and bought out my share of the company. And I was running up a bunch of bar tabs, making the business look bad, and then so I got bought out on that. That I did not handle that or balance that at all. The
I'd
second
like to,
one, yeah,
oh, go ahead.
the second one was a collectible and antique store in San Antonio, and I was buying storage units at auction and then selling them in my store. And then the third business was the podcasting and the speaking, or still is.
So let me turn to your book, Decisions, the Power to Overcome Self-Defeating Behaviors, and really focus on resilience. As you taught us in that book, what were some of the stories behind it and how can the business leader employ them? And I'm going to even say under the new administration where things seem to be changing literally on a daily basis.
Change management. So one of the stories in there is in 2008, I came back from a really bad deployment. Not all of us returned. And it was like the Fallujah, Mosul, and like all the other places that we heard about on the news. And being in Afghanistan, it was just a really bad deployment. I didn't handle that well. And A-type personality military members are like, I don't need help. I don't need a therapist. I'm fine. Plus, we don't want our security clearances taken away and whatever. So I didn't have as good a resilience skills as I do now because I became a resilience trainer to help other people that were going through what I went through. And one of the stories in that book is the night that I was going to take my life. So that became a huge self-defeating behavior in a sense that I went through something hard and traumatic and kept it all bottled in and didn't talk to anybody about it. So nobody actually knew what was going on. So
So go ahead.
yeah, I'll say the business leader learns that you have to have a confidant. You have to have a board of directors, even if it's a personal board of directors for your life. You have to have someone to talk about with your marriage, whether it be the person that you're married to, probably should be the best person you talk about your marriage with, but a spiritual advisor. Doesn't have to be religious, it's just somebody spiritual, right? You got to have somebody for the finances, for your spirituality, for your growth, for you build yourself a personal board of directors, a bunch of mentors and a bunch of people that you can talk to so that you don't have to carry everything by yourself.
I once led a small nonprofit, and someone told me this, so I didn't learn it, but I had to employ it, which was to have one person you can say anything to and who can
Yes.
say anything back to you. And it doesn't matter
Yes.
who it is, but
Hmm.
they will tell you the truth. And I've
Hmm.
found that incredibly helpful. What is your ABC framework and how can leaders use it to manage stress and decision making?
Oh, that's a very good question. The ABC framework is a resilient skill that is taught. It's basically your activating event, your brain's interpretation of the event, and the consequences if you handle it positively or negatively. So your ABCs really quickly, very quickly, you have some activating event, something happens, you're really mad, whatever. What is your brain's interpretation of the event? And I love this one. You're in a hallway with a group of people, right? You wave at somebody that you see. Hey, how's it going? And they looked in your direction. They saw you, looked in your direction, didn't wave, and walked away. You're like, I wait. Okay, they don't like me. That's your brain's interpretation. They saw me. I know they saw me. Their brain's interpretation, your brain's interpretation of is like, they don't like me. I'm losing a friend, whatever. So now the consequences of your actions are either I don't talk to that person and I just assume my story that I'm telling myself is correct and I damage a friendship, or a positive consequence is I go talk to that person, say, hey, did you see me? Are we okay? Whatever. 9 times out of 10, turns out they just looked in that direction. They were very busy. They had things on their mind. They didn't see you and they walked past on the way to another meeting because they were late and had nothing to do with you. 9 times out of 10, everything that we tell ourselves has nothing to do with us.
I am in the recovery community, so the word gratitude is something I'm very familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
How can we use gratitude in a corporate setting or workplace culture?
So, gratitude has been scientifically linked to lowering your anxiety, stress, and depression. How you use it is counting 3 blessings a day, whether you do it at morning, noon, and night, or you do it all in the morning, or you do it all at night. And part of that gratitude is telling someone else about your gratitude. So, what I do is I call 7 people on the 7th day of every month. And I just pick 7 people that really in the last 30 days has helped me a lot. And I make a point to call them and say, man, I really appreciate you. You've really stuck out to me these last 30 days. And I just wanted to show some gratitude. You would not believe what people tell me back. I really needed to hear this because I was feeling less than. I was feeling unworthy. I thought about giving up. And knowing that I had some small part in your life that raised your spirits and gave you hope, I'm going to keep going. This is going to allow me to not give up or whatever. But people have told me, like, man, I was just thinking about quitting. I just didn't want to do this anymore, but maybe I'll keep going. And I said, just think about how many people you think you've helped and how many people just wouldn't say it. They wouldn't tell you that you've helped them. So gratitude is huge.
I'm tempted to end the podcast right here because I don't think we can get any better than that for me. And this podcast is really for me. Wow. Now, I want you to tell the listeners and think very closely about this next question.
Mhm.
How much does it cost to communicate with those 7 people?
Free. It's
Perfect.
free. You know what's crazy? Okay, okay. So in the corporate world, okay, there's a lot of people that don't want to go back to work because of office politics. They want to work remote because, and I am fully the remote bandwagon. Can you imagine how many buildings you wouldn't have to build, how much electricity you would save? As long as there's compliance, like you got to check in, you got to have meetings. If they want to work at home, go work at home. Who cares? But as long as your company's making money and it's profitable and it's productive, like great. However, comma, People want to work at home because that's their safe space, because there's office politics. There's people that are mean. Judy comes in talking about how horrible her husband is. Brad comes in talking about how his kids are, I don't know, running all over the streets and they're on drugs or something. And then this other lady comes in and she's talking about how life sucks. And it brings the workplace down. You don't have a workplace culture at your desk. You have a you culture. You get to be as awesome and nice or as ugly as you want, all in the safe space of your home. So I'm all for the remote work and everything like that. But for people who don't have that option, you have the opportunity to be kind. Kindness is free, but so is being mean. You can be, what I tell my kids, you can be mad, but you can't be mean. My kids will be upset about something. They're making each other mad. They're taking each other's toy, whatever. And I tell them, you can be mad. You cannot be mean. It's never okay to be mean. And as adults, I think a lot of people forget this. And so in a workplace environment, especially like HR, the most hated people on the planet in a corporate setting, it's free to be kind. And so it's free to call somebody, it's free to show gratitude. It just takes discipline.
Love it. Let's move over to transformational leadership. And what do you
Oh,
see
okay.
distinguishes a transformational leader from other leaders?
This is very simple. Transformational leadership is all about building up other leaders around you and not building followers. Most leaders want people to be loyal to them. Who's that sound like? They
Huh.
want loyalty. That's all they care about. You got to follow me. You either follow somebody out of love or out of fear. Love and fear will drive you. Thoughts, feelings, and beliefs drive all reactions and all decisions. And so you either follow somebody out of love or out of fear. You make decisions on love or fear. I'm very scared that the next part of my life is going to be, I don't know, it's unknown. It's going to be tumultuous. If I make this decision, if I move from Michigan to Florida, if I move from Utah to Michigan, if I go from Iraq to Afghanistan, like it's all scary. So I could say, I don't want to do any of that. And then I'd miss out on the opportunities that life has given me because I made the decision to say yes. So you don't say yes because of fear, or you do it out of love and you follow your significant other around in the military. You follow your significant around in their corporate job or wherever they're going to go. You follow your partner to have kids and build a life together. And so you're building up other people around you as a leader because of your kindness and love, and they choose to follow you out of love, or they choose to follow you out of fear of retribution because they don't feel like, or you don't feel like they're loyal, which is really reminiscent of what's happening today, I believe. So it's about building up other leaders. That's transformational leadership.
So, what about moving to the business positioning? You've talked about positioning in the marketplace,
Mhm.
but I see positioning literally in the corporate world as well. Can you maybe tie those together?
Yeah. So you either position your company or position yourself, or the market will position you. The market never lies. So either you position yourself or the market will position you. The market will always tell you what you do. If you ever want feedback, I love this. Go to social media and say, hey, everyone, I'm taking a poll. What is it that you think I do? Just that. You would not believe the people that take pictures of their plates and put it on social media. Oh, I'm here and whatever. I had somebody one time, they're like, yeah, I'm a speaker. I'm like, okay, what does your social media people say? They're like, somebody told me I was a chef and somebody else told me that I was a food inspector or something, or like a restaurant reviewer or whatever. I'm like, why? I go to a lot of restaurants. I take pictures of my food. I'm like, do you ever tell social media that you're a speaker? No. I'm like, you got to tell people what you do. You got to position it. And it's all based on a business discipline called category design. And category design is it's basically the operation or the intention of creating and dominating your own market category. And most people are not category designers. Uber is a category king, Walmart, Coca-Cola. You could use sports. What's the number one sport in the world? The number one car manufacturer, the number one search engine. And if you look at ChatGPT, people are like, oh, we'll just search it in Chat. ChatGPT is not search. ChatGPT is actually LLMO. It's large language model observance, which the O is can be translated into other things depending on who you ask, but it's a large language model. It's not a search. And actually, Google's not even search. It's more of a business suite. And you and I are old enough to remember Ask Jeeves when the internet came out.
Sure.
Ask Jeeves was the true search, but it got overrun by Bing. You know what the number one search term on Bing is?
Yeah.
Google. Because your computer comes with Microsoft. People
Right.
go to the internet, they type in Google, then Google will detect that you don't have Chrome installed, and it says, okay, download Chrome. Yes. And now you download Chrome, and that's all you use. It's the number one search term. And so people want the Google suite. So, yeah, it's category design.
Let's turn to overcoming self-defeating behaviors. You touched on that a little bit earlier and certainly
Mhm.
shared your experiences in this arena. But how do values-based goals play such a role for you in achieving long-term success?
Mm,
Because values are what a corporation
yes.
turns on.
Yes. In the corporation, you have a mission, vision, and values. So does the military. They have their mission, they have their vision, and then they have a set of core values. In the Air Force, it's integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. If you have a goal set for your life, but no value attached to it, what's the point? If you have a goal to make, let's say, I want to make six figures this year, but why? Because I want to take my family on vacation because I want to connect to my family deeper and I need money to do it. That's a pretty good value. You value family. But if you said, I just want to be rich and famous, there's not really a value to that. Rich and famous to who? Rich and famous why? Rich and famous for what? To do what? There's a lot of unanswered questions. Most people want to go viral on social media because they want to be the Hak Tua person, or they want to be the Mr. Beast of the cheeseburgers that they make at their house or something. Like, there, it's all kinds of reasons. But values attached to goals, you're significantly more inclined. Scientific research studies and everything has shown that if you have a value, something that you believe in attached to that goal, the likelihood of you achieving that goal is increased dramatically.
So the team building,
Mhm,
and I want to try and see if I can frame this a little bit because obviously in compliance, if it's more than one, there's a team.
mhm.
But compliance as a function only has persuasion as its ability. It's not like a legal department that says, no, you can't do that. You're going to break the law. Trying to persuade business people to do business ethically and in compliance. So I was
Right.
wondering if you might talk about one sort of compliance team building, but do those strategies that you advocate help a chief compliance officer or other compliance professional persuade?
Yeah, I'll equate that to quality assurance. I was quality assurance in the military, making sure that people comply with safety, make sure they comply with the rules and regulations. And in the Air Force, you have AFIs, which is an Air Force instruction or a regulation. It governs everything. So I was known as the AFI guy. I knew him. I would quote him. Somebody would say, I'm going to do it this way. I'd be like, no, you can't because AFI says this. Like, I just knew it. And so for compliance people, maybe you're not the most well-liked person because you're telling someone else how to do their job. However, comma, that is your job. It's something that you believe in, that everything should be done ethically and everything should be done safely. That's the way that I look at it. Everything is done ethically and safely because you start cutting corners. It's like how you do anything is how you do everything. If you're willing to cut corners at work, are you willing to cut corners in your marriage? Are you willing to cut corners in your parenting? Are you willing to cut corners in your car while driving and you risk being an unsafe driver? If you're willing to cut corners somewhere, you're willing to do them in other places. And so in the compliance industry, the compliance officers that are in each company, they have a responsibility as a team and they have a shared value. Their value of compliance and following the rules and regulations, which should be everyone's value. I value the rules and regulations, and it creates a culture of standardization. And when you don't have standardization, then you have people who just go rogue and do whatever they want. And so, really, to answer the question, the team building is, yeah, you can persuade them, but if you found a common value in what they're doing, then you have what's called the law of buy-in. And it says the law of buy-in says they buy into the leader first and the vision second. So you have to get the buy-in from the people, and a common value is one way to get the buy-in so that everyone's on the same page, and then they buy into your vision.
Sean, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask you if our listeners wanted any more information on your book, on your podcast, on your services, or to perhaps connect with you, what might be the best place for them to go or way for them to connect with you?
Thank you. The website is www.thesuccesscorps.com. There is a media appearance page right there on the top of the tabs. It's media appearances, and all my bios and books and guides and videos and social media links and everything is right there on that page. You can connect with me all over social media and the rest of the internet. And then on my website, there's the tab for books. I've got all kinds of guides and books and everything else, and they can get it from there. And on the homepage, you can listen to the podcast.
Well, Sean, I really enjoyed myself and learned a lot. I got 7 people I got to call on February 7th. I hope we can continue this conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. You're an amazing host.